Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Snap No Tap podcast. The beginning of April. They say spring is here, but why is there fresh snow on the ground here? That stinks. How you doing out there, Joe Cardinal?
Well, a little bit better than you. We don't have snow. We had flurries, like flurries and rain. To me, it's like the worst weather where you get that mix of like cold rain and snow. It's just, it's just miserable, overcast. So yeah, spring can't come quick enough for me, man. I'm done with it.
Well, with the exception of I think one or two episodes, we've been having relatively mild winters. Generally, I forgot how much snow. I think we got we got hit with one storm this year. I think I got 8 inches over here, but I get more than most because of that damn lake. It doesn't block anything. So the ice and the snow, like it just keeps blowing over here. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to the warmer weather.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait for the day where I'm outside and I'm not in some type of pain or discomfort.
Yeah, I've been battling this sinus infection, I think is what I have. And yeah, I just don't like it. I'm feeling like it. I had maybe another little breakthrough. So let's see if this lasts, or if I catch another cold. I don't know. This has been the worst this year.
Well, it seems like when, everybody, like at least in the city here and the burbs, when all the mask mandates and everybody started to kind of go back to closer to normal behavior, like everybody I was knowing was starting to get colds. So Sasha and I we both had bad colds for a while, missed some work. So yeah, it's kind of that rough transition back into the normal ways, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. But otherwise, I've been able to get a couple workouts in. Yeah, keep moving forward on stuff. So what's on your mind these days, Tony?
Well, this is going to be tomorrow's going to be a huge day because the traveling nurse is coming, but more importantly, the social worker is coming. This past week, I've had the physical therapist a couple times, occupational therapist, or the physical therapist once, the occupational therapist twice, visiting nurse once this past week, but they'll be here tomorrow, the social workers, about getting long-term care because it's no longer feasible. It's a shame that these people didn't come to my house 2 years ago because, like they see that I have the basement steps that can't be blocked off, that she can easily fall down because you can't stop her. She's ambulatory. So even the physical therapist said, she can get around. She really doesn't need the physical therapy. It's just her brain is just gone. So she strolls, she roams and takes off. And it's going to be bad now once the warm weather starts to happen. That one day that we had 60-degree weather here about 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it was, I don't remember. She took off. Even though I'm in the house, I can't monitor her every split second, and she seems to be cunning enough to do it when I'm either in the bathroom or I'm in the basement doing work, getting stuff around here that has to get done. So tomorrow's a big day. Talking to the social worker will be a big thing. I have a lot to explain to her, and then we move forward. And in the interim, I'm going to have to talk to some guys about, seeing if there's a chance for me to coach or do seminars, at least seminars, a couple seminars a month. It will not be feasible for me to be driving back and forth to Chicago once my mom is in the facility because of the gas. It would be, I would actually lose money on the gig. So, yeah, things are going to get really rough now. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, hopefully, yeah, the social workers will figure out, they'll get, it's hard to just get an impression, I would think, like in one visit, and really get a vibe for it. But maybe if they've done it enough, they can really tell quickly. They can size up the scene and understand what's going on.
Oh, it's not about that. She's already been, no, the determinations have already been made by the hospital and the doctors. That's not it. It's just a question of finding a facility and so on. And they're like, well, we need to try to find a facility around here. I said, not really, because I probably won't be staying here. All of that's that's the problem. Okay. Because my life has been completely put on hold for the last 5 years, really, since I lost the gym 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years in July, and in dealing with her. So that's something I'm not sure that the social worker has an answer for, but she needs to at least be aware of that. So this is a visit for me. It's not so much about my mother. This is to sit there and talk to me finally after all these years, hopefully. And I hope this isn't a bust out tomorrow. I mean, I hope I get the answers that I need. Otherwise, they're telling me that I need to go on my own and check these nursing homes out. Well, I can't. I can't leave her here and go all over creation checking these places out. So they just keep, it's like talking to a wall. Sometimes they just don't get it because they're not used to having a situation like mine. There's always somebody, there's always some family member to help out. Well, not in my case. So that's a difficult part, and that's the frustrating part. So yeah.
Is your mom able to travel much? Would she be able to go to check those places out with you at all?
No. Why would you want that? No, she doesn't even know what's going on. Okay. She doesn't even know who I am. And you can't leave her for a minute, and there's still protocols in place with the masks and this. I took her to the doctor one day. This is not I took her Friday, but this was one other time. And my phone goes off. She's in a waiting room. She's in the lobby with me. My phone goes off. So I step outside to answer the phone because I don't want to talk in front of everybody. And here she comes, walking right out the door, doesn't even come up to me, just hangs a right and starts taking off. All of a sudden, the nurse comes running out after her. So no. This is not simple, Joe. This is not simple. This is absolutely not a simple thing. I need help and I'm not getting the help. And I'm aggravated after all these years of no help. And, I'm still waiting for that respite care that I was supposed to get last November. How come I never got that? I've still never gotten that. So, nothing seems to ever go as planned. So I'm hoping tomorrow will be okay, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, it's tough. Eventually, my grandfather, towards the end, he'd gotten out of the house a couple times. My uncle was trying to watch him, and he stayed with my uncle for a while. But again, it just, even with more family members, you just, there'd just be gaps in coverage. You just miss something, and it had to be where he had to kind of eventually go to a home because you need that kind of professional level around the clock watching and care. You need a place that's set up for people so they can't get out,
Yeah, it's called a memory care unit. So the doors are locked on the floors and all of that. That's exactly what she needs. So now the issue isn't just getting her in. It's are there vacancies? And when is a bed going to open up? And many times it's like, okay, today, get her in now, and you can't prepare for that. Like right now, there's things that need to be done. I don't know what the term is, like business wise or, whatever. She's got bills that, I would have to get her off of those bills and because the nursing home will take everything except $30 a month. So all of her other stuff that she's still paying on, I'm going to have to absorb that. Okay. So I'd have to contact those debtors, I guess you would call it, and deal with that. And I need a heads up. You know, anybody would need a heads up. You can't just up and do that like boom today. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And as I said, it would be much comforting to me if I had somebody here, physically here, to walk me through this or help me or actually do it for me. Like, well, I can make some of those calls for you, Tony. You know, that kind of shit. But I just honestly, I don't have the help. So we'll see what happens. Nothing I can do.
Yeah, hopefully this is not the first rodeo. I know your situation is pretty unique, but if they should be at least guide you in the right direction, I would think, and kind of guide. Ideally, they're sending someone who can guide you through this process. You know that this is, yeah, exactly, kind of divesting someone of their assets and making that financial transition.
Well, the caseworker is only going to be here one time. So it's tomorrow and tomorrow only. This is not a continuing education program. This is not the day one of many days. It's a one and done thing. Yeah, it's pathetic how it's set up. I'm not happy about it. I will never be happy about any of this. It was all avoidable because I had been telling the various agencies for years what's happening here. And I said, I need help. The shit's going to get bad. It's going to get really, really bad. And, you know, they just falls on deaf ears. Like I said, I'm still waiting since November for that respite care that I never got. So, you know, I'm not expecting anything tomorrow, to be honest. But I do know that the doctor at least has given her I don't know what the medical term is. It don't matter, like a prescription to you know, go into long-term care. So all I would have to do is call up, you know, the long-term care facility and say, look, she's got their, you know, talk to her doctor okays it. So when can we get her in? That kind of deal.
Well, unfortunately, it just highlights how, you know, social services and programs like that have been underfunded for so long. And a lot of people are hurt falling through the cracks like that. You know, they just don't have the resources to help people that they need. You know, this is just one example of it. But yeah, it's tragic. I'm sorry you're having to go through this, man. This is terrible.
Thanks, but it changes your personality. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, that's a well-known thing that caregivers get the anxiety and get the stress and all of that. And, you know, but ordinarily they have breaks. Matter of fact, I was talking to a caretaker and the caretaker was like, no matter how bad it gets on the job, I get to go home. I'm like, yeah, you get to sleep in peace. I says, that's just the opposite with me. If I have somebody here watching my mother for 4 hours and I can get out and go shopping or do whatever, I still have to come home to this chaos, and I can't sleep because it's all hours with me, with her. So, yeah, it's just it's a tough situation. It's just very difficult. So, you know, and it's worse now. And so this was inevitable. Okay. So here we go.
Yeah. And kind of like what you're talking about, they mentioned that in the EMS, that a lot of people who work in, like, you know, healthcare and things of that matter, they get compassion fatigue, you know, and they become calloused, you know, and it does change them, you know, when you've seen enough people go through things. And this is people who, like you said, get to go home at the end of the day. But when it's your day
and get a paycheck,
right?
Right. I'm doing all this for free. It costs me money to do this.
So, but yeah, I mean, I guess to your point that it changes people, that their outlook, you know, you just hear about that. Like, you know, I have friends who are police officers, and you can sense that they become a little bit more cynical, you know, with interacting with people like that day in and day out. So yeah, you get affected by it. There's no doubt.
Yeah, no, it's human nature like that. You know, doctors get callous to it, firemen, yeah, and any healthcare worker or just other people. Like growing up in a crime-ridden area, you get accustomed to the crime. Nothing shocks you anymore because you've either heard the stories firsthand or you've witnessed it, or you know that it happened to somebody. So you become very hardened. And that's why, like, when we talk about self-defense techniques, either on the show here or when I instruct, either video or live, I take it really serious, and I get angry at these sports guys, some of them that have no conception of reality-based self-defense, and they teach bullcrap. They teach shit that's going to get somebody worse hurt, because you're going to give them that false sense of security, that, oh, I can handle it because I watched this YouTube video, or I train with, Joe Schmo. No, Joe Schmo has no experience. They're guessing that this stuff's going to work. It's theoretical. And you don't need theoretical stuff in a street fight. You need proven techniques and tactics. So that's why I have an attitude towards that, towards people like that. Sportsmen, no, because that's more lighthearted. But yeah, this I just hope that this is all going to end soon. And it'll be better off for my mother to be in a place like that, because she'll be around, more people and people her age, and this and that. It'll be more stimulating. And if it's a memory care unit, I'm assuming that they're going to have like I know when I was in the rehab hospital, after I had my aneurysm back in the early 90s, we didn't have televisions in our room. Okay, they were forbidden. Part of it was because they forced you to get into the wheelchair, and or whatever for me it was a wheelchair, and go to a community room. All right. So there was a community center, like one room with a television, and certain nights of the week they had movies. The staff would play movies. And so I'm assuming that these places would have something similar to that. And they might even have cafeteria. Now, we didn't have a cafeteria. We ate in our bedroom. I did have a roommate, but so I would guess that they may have this. So after my meeting tomorrow is when I'll at least start doing virtual tours. I'll at least start going through the list and start looking online. I didn't even want to bother doing any of it until I actually talked to the social worker. So I'm not, wasting any time here, because maybe this social worker will say, well, I know exactly where to put her. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I hope that all goes well, man. Hey, I was going to ask you about, so how long, when you had your aneurysm, do you remember how long you were hospitalized for?
I that's, it's funny. I remember exactly. I actually was in 2 hospitals. I was first in the hospital, and I was there for about a month and a half. And then they transferred me to Schwab Rehab on the South Side. And I was there for approximately a month and a half. Okay. So the aneurysm happened June 1st. That's when I was rushed into the hospital. And if my memory serves me right, I got out of the hospital, the rehab hospital, August 22nd. So basically 3 months. So a month and a half, about a month and a half, I think, in the first hospital, and a month and a half in the second hospital. So 3 months basically total. And then of course, follow-ups, it was tough.
When you came out, you were still needing a wheelchair, right?
Oh, I couldn't walk. I was still all paralyzed and shit. But what they did, they had a room set up that was like an apartment, with a stove and all of that, refrigerator, and so basically what would happen is this: in the morning, you would get your physical therapy. They tell you what time you have to be there, and you get downstairs to the physical therapy. Then you have your occupational therapy. Then you have your psychological, the neural shrink that helps people. Like, they had actually put me on a stroke floor because my symptoms were similar to someone who had a stroke. My speech wasn't super affected. But even to this day, like, my right eye droops, my right side is smaller. I have my left side was, stronger than my right. But yeah, it was a very difficult scene to, I wasn't the youngest guy in there either. There was actually a girl that was on in my therapy class and therapy thing. She was like 16 or 17. She got shot in the head. That's tragic. I was 29 at 28. Then I had my 29th birthday in the hospital. And then, so yeah, I was relatively young, but not, by no means was I the youngest one there. But my roommate was older. He was like 60 something, early 60s, Mr. Brownfield. He was stroke, stroke victim. We actually had some funny times because we were so helpless. It was kind of ridiculous. We had to help each other out, getting each other out of the bed and getting each other into the bed. And yeah, I couldn't walk. And they had me, I was able to stand on crutches. The kind of clip on your, they call them Canadian crutches. They clip on your forearms. But I couldn't go far with those. So like, if I had to go like really far with anything, I had a wheelchair. I played a basketball game with the wheelchair bulls. I played hockey, like on a sled. They strap you to a sled because you can't stand. So we had field trips. Believe it or not, they had somebody that was called a recreational therapist, younger girl, real nice. And one of her gigs was to take you out. All right. Like wherever you wanted to go within reason, obviously, but like, what do you like to do? What, and I'm like, well, I can't do any of the things that I like to do. I'm not even, I can't even do it, like shoot pool or anything that I was, martial, I couldn't do anything. So, but we did go out. It was kind of nice. And, and it makes you there because they were trying to get you ready for the transition back to, a real existence. It was tough. I couldn't drive a car, because I would have had to get all those doodads added on.
Mm-hmm.
And, they don't, how are you going to get that done? And I'm like, no, I'm going to learn to walk again. I'm going to get my facilities back again. And yeah, so I had a medical restriction for driving for many months. And then once that was lifted, I figured I'm going to figure a way out. I'm going to figure out how to drive again. And I had a physical therapist who wasn't really my therapist. She was just doing this on her own. And she would come to my house, my apartment, and take me for car rides. And when I got a little stronger, she started to let me try to drive. She was showing me. She did it, she helped me a lot. Then, of course, when I eventually met Kevin, see, they had a thing at that hospital called a paragym. Basically what a paragym was, it's like a universal machine, but you roll in there with your wheelchair, you strap yourself the wheelchair down, and you can do certain exercises, flies, curls, cable stuff. And what I found out was after I got out of the hospital, I wanted to continue my exercise program. Well, most gyms wouldn't allow me in. They refused me, these health clubs. Finally, there was one that allowed me in, but I found out it doesn't matter because I would try to do with the crutches and get over to the equipment, but then what? I couldn't grab dumbbells. I couldn't, get weight onto the, trying to learn how to bench because, my one arm wasn't working. So I'm I just was having troubles. I had no help. And everybody looked at you like you were a freak. A couple people would talk to me, but nobody wanted to come close to me. It was like I was a leper or something, right? So I had to give up. And the day I was able to drive again, the day I was able to get my license renewed, and I've again, I never forgot this day. It was March 13th, 1994. I went out and I went to this bar restaurant that I think I had been there once many years before with my accordion teacher, classy joint. People were like, man, you're a young guy. What happened to you? Why are you all messed up? And I kind of explained the story. And they're like, well, there's a guy that comes in here every day with his wife, Kevin. He's a big, strong guy. He lifts weights. Why don't you talk to him? And I'm like, well, you sure he's going to be here? Because I'm getting tired. I want to go home. No, he'll be here. And sure as shit that Kevin showed up. I never knew him. I started talking to him. He's like, well, I own a tool and die shop. I have a weight bench and, lat machine, all that. Here's my address. This was a Sunday. He's like, show up tomorrow. I'm like, well, I'll be there. for sure. And then what I didn't realize is when I pulled in and I backed in, you remember that place, there was that ramp,
Sure.
that
Yeah,
ramp to go up to the tool and die. I couldn't get up that ramp. I couldn't walk up that thing. And I'm like, well, shit, what am I going to do? And then one of his guys, one of his workers just they didn't even know I was out there. They just lifted up that garage door for whatever reason. They saw me and I'm like, hey, I'm here to see Kevin, man. I need some help up this ramp. So they actually helped me up the ramp. And then Kevin was shocked. He's like, man, I never thought you'd show up. I said, I'm here. Let's lift, And because of him, I recovered. That's why I say I owe my life to the guy, because he would put the weights on for me. He would spot the bar, the bench, so I could do my negatives. And because when, I had movement in my right arm. By that time, I was getting some movement back, but no strength, so we could do the negatives, and he spotted me and, all of that until gradually the strength started to come back. And then, I helped him with his bench because I knew how to lift. I knew all the tricks of the trade. I was a strong enough guy, but, so I helped him and he helped me, I miss that guy. My life would be so much better if he was still here, because I'd have that help. I'd have that outlet.
for sure.
Yeah, but that's a long journey. And that's why I tell people who may not be in the greatest of health, you can still do it. You can still train with me. You can still learn these techniques. I can get you better. I can get you stronger. Remember, most people aren't Arnold Schwarzenegger in their prime. Okay. They're more like, I don't know, Archie Bunker or something. Most people are never really in shape unless you were a high school athlete or college athlete. So for many folks, it's not a matter of getting back into shape. It's a question of getting into the best shape of your life. And for some people, that could be 40, 50 years old. You could literally, or even older, you could get in the best shape of your life because you never were in great shape ever before. And regardless, you can still recover and make gains. There's nothing to stop you from making physical and psychological gains, and also knowledge. You'll learn a lot of knowledge. So it's never too late. It really isn't.
I mean, one of the tricks has got to be patience, though. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, especially when you're coming from a huge deficit. Like, obviously, it must have been a long time for you to build back up to any kind of semblance of even just average strength working
3.5 years to bench 400
from when you
Nope.
met him, when you started lifting.
Yeah, because I met him in March of 94. I benched 400 in 1997, coming from a negative deficit. Okay, no steroids, no any kind of drug, nothing except protein powder and vitamins. So it took me 3.5 years to bench 400 drug free. And then it took several years after that to get up to the 480 that I benched. So, I mean, going drug free is, you really need patience. And that's the only way to do it, because the strength is always there. It's real, it's natural. And even if when you quit lifting, you're going to lose some of your strength, but you'll have that muscle memory, you'll get it back, and you won't need supplements, like illegal, growth hormone or testosterone or anything to help you. So that's my thing. I did everything natural, especially when you had aneurysms and all that other crap, or whatever your case may be with something. You don't want to be putting shit in your system that's going to make you die again, right? Or have another major physical catastrophe. Do it natural. But you're right. Patience. Everything takes patience. Learning how to fight takes patience. I mean, it shouldn't take 20 years, but you can't have it overnight. You can't watch somebody's video. I don't care who the instructor is, and then go out and start winning championships. Don't work that way. You got to train, because everybody else is doing it too.
Yeah, that's one of the frustrating things I've seen, and some of this is just in fiction, but it's just kind of the idea that, like, especially when you're starting back up, that you have to kill yourself, that you have to fatigue yourself, or, like you gotta, go for the burn right away. And it's like, especially if you haven't trained in a while, you gotta respect your body, and because you can overdo it. Eventually you'll get to the point where you can really stress test your system and start to build it on, but not right out of the gate. And yeah, I think so often, I keep at my age, I keep relearning, because I'll go through phases where I'll have access to weights or I won't. And yeah, I used to have a pattern where I'd build up my deadlift. I'd move so many pounds, per week up. Um, and I'm learning that my body can't do that same trajectory anymore, that I'd start to have back spasm and things. So that, it's constantly listening to your body. And one of the weightlifting buddies I have at work, he says, because he's older than me, he's like 10 years older, but he always uses the phrase, sometimes he says he'll write checks that his body can't cash, and he has
Yeah.
to be careful about that, as he's gotten older. And so it's almost constantly relearning what your body, how your body grows back on it. So I was going to ask you, so you knew about weightlifting, but you had you heavy lifted prior to your aneurysm?
I lifted, but not heavy weights, because I was fast. I wanted to keep my speed up, and I had more of a svelte, in shape, cut, like real cut, lean, light heavyweight, basically, probably walked around on like 185, 190, maybe. It depends. I graduated high school, I was 178. But when I got out of the hospital, I was down to like 160, something like that. I mean, I was emaciated. I was real thin. So I really had to build back. But yeah, I mean, I knew everything, how to gain strength. But here's the thing. I'll confide in everybody. I was at home. This is after I got released from the hospital. And I had she wasn't even 100 pounds, a caregiver, right? From the Philippines. And she, 90 some pound girl, had to lift me from my bed to the walker, because I still wasn't in any good shape, and then get me to the shower and all of this shit. And I said, I went from being, athletic, fast, strong enough, tough enough, to this, to having to rely on some little girl that's almost like half my weight. So I said, no, that's never going to happen again. And the one thing that the doctors told me, that because of my fitness, because I was so in shape, it helped me. So I said to myself, well, guess what? I'm going to go overkill. I'm going to become so strong that if something shit like this would happen to me again, I'll, and I get set back somewhat, I'll still have strength. Okay. I won't be so damn debilitated and weak. That was my motivating factor. This little Filipina that came to my house a few times, several times. I don't remember how many times, a lot. And I said, no, I can't have this. Okay. So then I just said, no, I'm going to go for weight. I'm going to go for strength, like as much strength as I can get. And once I got physical, once I was able to, start standing on my own. Oh, it was a big thing. That matter of fact, let me backtrack. So Kevin and all of his friends, so we went somewhere. I forgot where it was now. I think we went horseback riding or some shit. A group of us, like 12.
I can't picture you on a horse.
Yeah.
With a
Yeah,
cowboy hat.
I got yelled at too at the place. But anyway, I said, I'm not even going to take my crutches. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And I remember one lady, Kevin's was at the time, it was his wife's best friend. She always told me, I can't wait. I'm so curious on how you walk. I'd really like to know how you walk. Because nobody ever saw me walk. I mean, I was either in a wheelchair or I had crutches. So I said, well, I don't, Laura was her name. I said, Laura, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to still walk like I used to walk. Mm-hmm. And of course I didn't. I had to drag my right leg, it would drag, I couldn't like gate it, like that. It was dragging, but I did. I took it. We went to that horseback thing. I did not bring my crutches. I just dragged my leg. And that's, and then eventually I dragged it less and less and less and less until I kind of walked where if you didn't know me, you wouldn't know that, that I had any kind of malady, but I probably don't walk like I used to when I was before the aneurysm. And I don't run, of course, as fast as I used to, but part of that also is age. And I got more heavily muscled, but yeah, there's so much to it that you just don't think, and of course my memory suffered more than anything, my personality kind of changed. And um, I still to this day do a lot of the memory tricks that they taught me there, on like how to do everything the same every day, put your keys in the same place, put your, hang your coat in the same spot, whatever, that kind of jazz. So you get into that routine. Um, and that's been very difficult with her because she takes things and moves things and loses things. And most of the stuff is my stuff. So then I don't know where anything's at, but it's tough for anybody that goes through it. It's really a hard thing. I did it. You guys can do it. And then I had those relapses with the brain concussion shit in 02 and 03, that 2002, 2003, that was, residuals from this. And I'm having it again another 20 years later. This is just going to continue. But I think I'm worse now mentally than I was back then. My memories and other things along with it, I'm not going to get into all the details, are far worse now than back then. But I hope that once my situation here stabilizes, that I can start focusing on my health again, and take care of that, because I have to take care of her first.
Were those relapses, were they triggered by an incident, or they were just kind of something that like training or something, or it just happened? It was kind of like an aftershock.
Yeah, no, they told me that you're going to have this because, this is CTE and all that. That's what I have. I have a lot of brain issues. I got hit in the head a lot of times and other things, so, getting dropped and, all that. So it was just a matter of, it was going to happen. But back in 2002, 2003, it was really bad. I was hospitalized everywhere in Chicago, man. Bad things happened, and like seizures, and it was a horrible, horrible thing. And I get those episodes now and then, not so much seizures, but this zoning out. You'd have to see it. You don't want to really see it because it's scary to people.
There's a kind of seizure where you just kind of blank out. It's not like people think where you're convulsing. It's literally like,
I was convulsing.
but I mean, you had those too, but I think there's a kind, and maybe this is not what you had, but
I had transient ischemic attacks, TIAs. Okay. So like, all right. So for example, I could be sitting here and then and I normally know when it's coming, but then I'll be like, and I'll be quiet and I'll be zoned and I'll be looking and I won't know anything. I won't know where I'm at, who I'm with, or anything, sometimes I'll think back like I'm in high school. And that's another thing. This is interesting. This is going back to now when I was first admitted in 93. The neuropsych said when people have like what's called TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, many times, sometimes it'll be so severe they'll revert back to infantile, okay, or they'll revert back to childhood, right? 8, 9 years old. That's how they think, their thought process sometimes. For me, I reverted back to like when I was 17, like when I was a junior and senior in high school.
That's a good time to go back to.
Well, it's not a good or bad thing. It's just, that's what seemed to happen with me. And it's not cool because you actually start thinking you're still 17 or 18. So therefore, when you're out and about, for example, let's say I was 30. I see a girl, I'm thinking she's my age. Well, she's not. She's out high school, but you can't. Sometimes you have to stop and gather your wits about you because you don't know. But yeah, so that was, and sometimes you're fine, So it was kind of weird. And another thing he used to say, he said something like, dreams. If you have a traumatic, let's say you lose your limb, you get your arm amputated in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll normally dream for about 7 years that you're still You still have your
Mhm.
limbs. Okay. It takes a long time for your subconscious to, get over the fact that you don't have that limb. Or in my case, in my dreams, I'm able bodied. I'm running, jumping,
Mhm.
beating people up. It takes a long time to, you know, to for you to start dreaming, that your current conditions. So those are interesting tidbits. And one of the things I found out is, and this is to this day actually. So this is many years. Every time I dream about my house, like I'm living somewhere in my dream, I still dream of Cleveland. I never dream of here where I live now or even anywhere in Chicago. I always dream when I have any dreams that are relating to me being at a house, either by myself or with somebody, it's Cleveland.
I was going to ask you that about, well, I want to get back to dreams, but I was going to also ask you, like when you said with your brain, you actually don't realize your age. Did you sometimes, when you were awake, think you were in Cleveland, or did you know where you were at least? Because there's
No,
like,
not always. No, I sometimes thought, matter of fact, I was told by people that, I don't remember, I was calling out for my high school English teacher because she was the most important person uh, out of all my school teachers. She was my favorite school teacher, and she was the one I could most personally relate to back
mm,
then. I couldn't relate to Rodvan personally, but to my teacher, I could. Um, so yeah, sometimes I would be like that, or I'd get lost. Uh, I'd be driving around in my car fine, and then I'm like, man, how do I get to St. Clair Avenue? Well, I'm in Chicago. I'm not going to, 79th and St. Clair. You get mixed up. And, thankfully many times I'll come out of it, quickly. Um, but those are part of the problems. That's why that's another reason why I didn't like to travel and do like seminars unless I knew the guy on the other end that was bringing me out for the seminar, because a new place gets me confused. Okay. I don't know where I'm at. You start to panic. You start to like not think clearly. Um, and it makes it for a very uncomfortable episode. It's just not something that's cool. It's a bitch when you have these kind of things. That's why I can relate to all the football players. Of course, I knew about this from boxing and wrestling, but the football players, matter of fact, my one doctor that finally diagnosed me in 2002, he was actually Muhammad Ali's boxer or doctor as well. And he said, until this starts hitting like the NFL, nobody's going to pay any attention to concussion syndromes and shit. Wow, he was like a psychic because he predicted that in 2002. Because he said he was working with a lot of pro wrestlers as well. Because he was originally down in, I think, Georgia, wherever the WCW was. And he worked with, I forgot his name now because I don't remember that. Brian met him, Brian Deneve. But he worked with a lot of those guys, and he worked with Muhammad Ali. And he ended up working with me doing the cognitive tests and, looking at brain scans and everything. And he's like, yeah, man. And then through interviewing you and looking at stuff, he determined that I had minimum of probably 20 concussions. That's a
he
lot.
could, wow, he could do that from like the cognitive test, just kind of,
No, you'd have
or,
to ask him, but they're
mhm.
based on the brain and incidents. Like one time when I was in his police academy in Cleveland, I got hit full blast with a PR-24. Somebody, I wasn't even involved in it. I was standing there, get let loose, hit me.
What's the PR-24? What is that?
It's called a prosecutor 24. It looks like it's a military police. It's a tonfa. So
Oh, okay, okay,
but
yeah,
it's made out of,
like a nightstick kind of shot. I mean, I know it looks like a tonfa,
but it's not wood. Okay. This is, made out of, titanium or whatever the hell it was made out of. I used to be certified. You used to have to get your certification to use those things. Cops used to carry those in
mhm.
Ohio. I don't know if they do anymore. Probably not. They're actually, it takes a lot of skill. So, I mean, and that split my head open in a whole 9 yards, and then all the other hits. And when I got, hit with the baseball bats, and then time I got hit with a pipe, all this, and then just different stories. And then he also said that even wrestling, what happens is when you can get slammed on your ass and the shock will travel through your spinal cord and cause your brain to, your medulla oblongata and screw you up. So anyway, based on everything, he came to the conclusion, ballpark, that I probably had around 20 concussions. And they ask you, did you ever go out? Did you ever like not know where you were after you got hit?
Mhm.
And like, your bell, you get your bell rung, yeah, this, then that, yeah, boom, boom, bang, bing, and then I had other people telling them, yeah, Tony, this happened to him, blah, blah, blah. So, that's not good. Okay. There's nothing you can do about it. So, it is what it is. But they had kind of prepared me for what to expect. And the last thing I remember him saying, this is that Ali's doctor, was when it finally hits, it's going to hit like a tidal wave, like a tsunami. It's just going to come. And this is the trigger, my mom, because one of the biggest things he said is you've got to stay out of stress. Stress will trigger these things, but once it starts to happen, it'll happen. And everybody is different. Like with Johnny Lira, the boxer, it affected his voice, his brain. He could still think pretty clearly. Muhammad Ali, he lost his voice, right? With Jerry Cooney, or not Jerry Cooney, Jerry Quarry, he didn't know where he was. He still thought he was training for the title. He still thought he'd have a shot at the title. He'd go out, walk, and get lost on the corner of the street. So mine's probably more like Cooney, or I keep saying Cooney, more like Jerry Quarry kind of thing, because my memory is, it's not so much my speech, at least not yet, and I hope it isn't, but it's my memory, and my hands tremble and shit. Like when I can't eat soup or something like that. You saw that, you know how it gets, and it's hard. So everyone's different. It affects people differently, but it also affects them in different ways. So like, they use the term panic, but it's not like you're frightened. It's just that you can't think clearly. And, with me, everything has to go slow. So like, I mean, I know what 2 + 2 is 4, but let's just pretend. I'll give you like an example. Like if you ask me something, let's say, Tony, 2 + 2, I'll be like, okay, give me a second now, Joe. Okay, 2 + 2 is 4. So, situations like that may take me a while to figure it out, which is very frustrating. Okay. And then that compounds your problem because you can't, what's happening to you. So it becomes very frustrating. And now too with me, names, forget it. I can't remember names. And I know you say you can't, I get it, but mine isn't because of my age. It's because of this. It's very difficult to not remember things you should remember. People that you knew for forever, and you can't remember their names. That's hard. So, and what are you going to do? I mean, what can I do?
That's something definitely to keep in mind, and I no pun intended there, but as people who are training in combat sports, is keep track of those hard contacts you get. If you're getting too many of those, you need to slow it down because there is a long-term effect, or maybe, and so there is a cost to that you may not be aware of. It's not, you don't get that for free, and yeah, it's something to be, yeah, coaching and being aware of who your training partners are too, that they're going to take care of you, because yeah, that stuff just adds up. And but it is, and I'm sure, like you said, everybody's different. And even though I maybe had 1 or 2 concussions that I'm aware of, just from playing football with my friends or whatever and things like that I can remember training. I just think the process of for you is like it's the blurred with what is the process of aging, and then what is the process of these, it's all going to be mixed up there, because some stuff is normal. Like you were talking about how whenever you dream you're back in Cleveland, like when with a home or whatever. It's just funny psychological things. I don't know if I told you this, but like whenever I dream of Ben or any of my kids really, but I remember it most with Ben, he's now in his 20s, my son. But when he's in my dreams, he's a little boy. He's 7 or 8. So whenever he's there, I'm always, it goes, or when you're saying like the phantom limbs, like the reality is you don't have an arm, but when you're in this other state of mind, your mind remembers back the way things were, or however they symbolize to you. This is how you picture yourself or your family. You know, I still have, and I think randomly, I've even like I'll dream that I'm waking up at a previous place I lived. Like I won't know where I'm waking up. There'll be a split moment whereas I'm re-engaging, waking up where I'll be like, oh yeah, this is the house I'm living in now. It doesn't happen all the time, but occasionally a dream will just put me in a space where I think I'm somewhere else. Um, It'll even like mind games. I remember when we moved furniture around, like sometimes you move the position of the bed, and I'd literally think I was waking up where the bed was before. Like the door would be to my right, and I'd wake up and be momentarily confused because I think your body just has those patterns ingrained. Um, I do think maybe, I don't know, did the doctor say anything like your musical training? I've heard that a lot of musicians, because they're ambidextrous and they're working, they've got these fine motor skills, and also you're working just a different part of your brain, because music is very mathematical, and you're kind of learning things in the fry. Did he think that, did they talk about any of those things being helpful for you, or maybe giving more, resilience?
No, but it really damaged me in 93 because I played the accordion with the right hand, and so when I started to get some movement back or got enough to where I could start doing things, I could never get my technique. I mean, I never could get my technique back. I could never get the independence, the different finger dexterity back. I got halfway decent again, and then when the shit started up in 2002 and 2003, that was it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna. I did try to give it one more shot. I'll take that back. I did try to give it one more shot, and I think I was still practicing pretty hard up until 2005, because I started doing this correspondence with a guy out of Ohio. He was trained by Spud Murphy, who was legendary Hollywood composer and an arranger and all of that. And I told you, I think before, I really wanted to become an arranger more than anything. And so I started with the Spud Murphy course. I don't even know. I have most of my material, but I don't think I have that. But I fell apart. It just wasn't. I just couldn't dedicate the time to it. I got involved in other things, in life, and I'm like, nah, I'm going nowhere with this. The music business completely changed, so there would have been no financial reason for me to do it, and just things in life weren't. The timing wasn't there. I'm like, nah, I'll never be able to play like I want to play, or first of all, I'll never be able to play like I used to play. And I'll never be able to play like I want to play, because I wanted to play better than I used to play. And that just wasn't going to happen. But yeah, there may be something to it. Keeping the one thing is that, they say you're going to have a hard time learning new things. And they're right about that, because when I have to learn something new, I got to woodshed. And then if I don't do it for like a week or so, then I forget it. Everything I just spent a month studying and doing. Now I haven't done it for a week or so. I lose complete everything. That's why I couldn't do the Pac-Man. I just can't remember the patterns.
I was going to ask about that. So you haven't been
I
pursuing
gave
that?
it up because it was just too frustrating, because I would get halfway through it, my mind would blank out. I can't retain 60 seconds, which is not approximately the time it would take to clear a screen. Approximately. And I can't remember. It was just getting, I just couldn't remember, and so it wasn't fun. So I could just play a game that I'm not good at, and have fun at it. But I haven't played any of the videos that I built, because of the fact that I'm still upset about, the Pac-Man. But I'll wait until everything is done with my mom. And again, if I have a few, like 6 to 9 months where I can just be me, and take care of me and put myself as the number one priority, then maybe my 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 focus and my stress level will come way down. Maybe my stress level might actually go way up, because now, if I'm not teaching or making income, then that's going to make it even worse. So I'm really apprehensive right now because I don't know what the future is going to hold. So yeah, that's where I'm at. It's tough. I mean, it's, you got to remember something too. Like, I saw Glenn Campbell, who, was one of my favorite guitarists, who had Alzheimer's, playing when he was in the Alzheimer's facility, but he was playing all the way through, even when he had his diagnosis and this and that. Got to remember, I haven't been playing music in 20 years. So, for me to pick it up, even if I didn't have any memory loss or any issues, would be very difficult to get your technique back after all those years. You let your chops go, man. You know what I mean? You may not get those back on something like this. That's fine motor skills. And that's, I told you, my hands tremble and I don't have good, independence. I mean, I still do, like, I try to do this stuff when I'm on a table, trying to do my thirds, just to try to keep my fingers going every now and then. And people think it's a nervous twitch. It's not. I'm actually doing Isidore Philippe finger lifting exercises without the keyboard. But no, I forgot my chords. I forgot. I mean, I know what I hear in my head. I hear it, but I can't remember. I just can't remember the chords anymore. I can't remember. It's just really, really difficult. I cannot remember. And it's frustrating more than anything. It's just so damn frustrating, which is what I need to avoid. I need to avoid frustration.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, if you could find a way not to be frustrated with, like, either Pac-Man or the music, it seems like even the act of trying would be healthy for you. So, like, if you're like, hey, yeah, I'm never going to be what I was, but just picking it up for 10 minutes a day and, working it for my brain's sake, let's see how far I can take it. Maybe, I'll get stuck on this screen for Pac-Man, but fuck it. That's as far as I'm going. Like your original goal is, okay, I'm going to get back to where I could, go get to the ninth key or whatever. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
for now, that's not the goal. Now it's just to see, just to stretch those neurons or whatever, just to try and, test the waters, just, even like making a failed attempt is still trying to push your mind and your body, your coordination. That may help things, or just keep, as long as you can get yourself not frustrated, because you don't want to get stressful and then
No.
but just be like, okay, I'm not going to be what I was, but I can still have,
Well,
I think there's a benefit for trying.
part of the problem is too that I was taught on the accordion now, very difficult stuff. Well, I sent you a couple of tapes, or not tapes, but MP3s when I, for that month that I had that electronic drum set, I was able to still jam some jazz with the drums. And I'm sure that would probably come back. I would never be a Buddy Rich again, but
You were never Buddy Rich.
right. No, I mean, what I'm saying is
Yeah, I
that
know,
it never
you're-
was a Buddy Rich. That's not what I meant. You know what I meant.
I know.
But with the accordion, it's much more difficult, because what I was taught was very few people in the world played full chords, 5-note chords, 5-finger chords, not simple 3 chords, 3-note chords, or 4-note
I
chords.
didn't even know there were 5-finger chords.
It's called 5-part blocks. And then I would also do open, like, yeah.
Here we go. We're getting a demo for the YouTube crowd.
I'm not going to
Right.
demo because I haven't, but so like a 5-note chord is, it's just big. You're playing those chords or wide open chords like this. The 13th chord, the C13th, right? Or, these are heavy chords. D flat 13th.
I love it.
Open harmony. So, these are like wide spread chords. So they're not like simple, like what is it? Nobody, I don't play that kind
That's
of
great.
this stuff, But I can still do like Lady of Spain. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I can still do those kind of or those. But you know, it's just a matter of practice. And it's hard when you're playing heavy duty jazz chords, you know. Jazz is tough. Believe me.
You realize this is the first time I've ever seen you pick up the accordion? First time ever.
First and last.
Hopefully
No,
not.
but-
I'd like to see more of that.
No, the thing is though,
We'll
when
get you a
you're
little
playing-
monkey.
Yeah, get the little. That's an organ grinder now. No, I need a little stripper. Yeah, that's what I need. You know, play the little strip tease tunes and shit. But the whole point is though, I'm a perfectionist. Okay, that's a flaw. It's no longer like a quality thing; it's a flaw.
Sure. Yeah. If it's stopping you from doing something, then it's a flaw. Like if you're like, hey, I love this thing, but if I can't do it right, fuck it.
Right.
To me,
And
that's
how
a
I am
negative.
with everything. That's why I don't not recommend. Endorse. Very few people I endorse in the martial arts world because I don't really think most of them that I've seen are any good. I mean, they're not dogs, but they lack so much, you know, that I can't say, yeah, go train with this guy. I can't. It's not that I'm an asshole. I'm just being
No.
very honest. If you
Yeah.
don't want to, you know, you're better off not asking my opinion because, but then there, as you guys know, there are some guys that I used to rave about, you know, like, how you going to knock a guy like Dan Gable? How you going to knock a guy like, you know, Floyd Mayweather, what he does, or Roy Jones when he was in top shape? You know, these guys, you know, mastered pretty much in general. I use that term in quotes because there's always room for improvement for everybody. But, you know, there are some terrific guys out there. But then I see these other ones that, you know, just, you know, they don't get it. They're missing it. And most, like I know my one music teacher, there was this hotshot kid, played real good accordion, fast, all that shit. But Jerry said, he doesn't have it, you know, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the jazz, okay? But because it takes an ear, and most good jazz musicians will tell you that, okay, you don't have it. Okay, you're missing it. You're like, that wasn't really so much jazz. I just played a couple of chords there, but jazz is totally different. And you know, you got to have the ear for it. Well, same with fighting. You could do all this fancy schmancy showboat stuff. Doesn't mean you're a good fighter. Same with pool. You know, you could sit there, do all these trick shots because you practice them over and over again, but can you win a game? Are you any good at the pool game? You know, the greatest pool players in the world are not trick shot artists. Now, I'm not bashing trick shot guys. Mike Massey can play pretty damn good pool. There's a couple others, but for the most part, trick shots are a thing unto themselves, you know, and so I'm a hard critic. So if Mr. Martial Art guy is pissed at me because I bashed his skill, I bash myself. You know, I bash myself worse than I bash Mr. Martial Art guy. Okay. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I've said this for years. It's all about self-awareness and being able to analyze yourself, self-analysis. Most people can't do that because so many think they're so good. Oh, I'm so good. I've been told I'm this. Well, you've been lied to. Okay. You're not that good. Okay. And I've been around the world's best at a lot of things. So I've been humbled many, many times. I know what greatness is. All right. And you know, and more than just, I've been around some of the greatest shots, pool shots, gun shots, fights, music. I've been around guys who are the absolute top 5 in the world, you know. So I know it's strength. I've been around, you know, super strong men. I know what it's all about. And I know where I'm at in the pecking order. And I know where these guys are at too, that you know, that may be a musician that put up a clip on YouTube or a martial art guy that's trying to show off his latest move. No, so don't come to me for an opinion because you're not going to probably like it.
Well, and the reality is, I mean, there's very few people who are in that, like that's a fraction of a percent of people who are going to be at that, you know, that gifted level who have it. You know, most people pursue things they love and they're never going to be great at it. you know, and that's okay too. I mean, as long as you keep working and improving, um, I think, I mean, I know it's a different, um, because yeah, I think you could probably, most people give up on all their dreams, or whatever interests them, because they're not going to, like I said, very few of us are going to, whatever we love, even if we love it and we pursue it, we're not going to be world class at it, you know.
Well, there's a lot of circle jerks in the world, okay? In all organizations where you get a bunch of people there and it's basically a mutual admiration society. That's not how you get better. That's not how the world operates. Years ago, I learned people used to send me video clips or something, in the mail and watch me. And I quit doing that because if you critique them, they hate you. Then they'll go on the internet and they'll start trashing the shit out of you because they're losers, because they come to you for advice. You tell them, well, you're doing this wrong. You can improve it here. And then they go on the warpath. Or you say something nice and all of a sudden, oh, Tony endorsed me. Tony thinks I'm the best. Tony thinks, no, I didn't say that either. I just said, oh, that double leg was nice or whatever, nice headlock. What? So I made a like a rule, whatever. See, this is my problem. See, I can't remember simple words. I made a vow. I'm not going to do that. Now, if you're enrolled in my program, if you're with the Tri-C program or you're training with me in other ways, yeah, now I'm going to give you my opinion, right? Because, we have a relationship now. We have a relationship. But just to email me and, and want, want this, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to, because it's just never, it's a no-win situation for me because everybody there's so many people out there that are haters, for example, that just want to go out and smear you and bash you and shit. Every person who's ever sent me a video that I commented on, let's say negatively, like, you need improvement. I've never mentioned their names. I've never gone on internet forums and said, oh, Joe Blow sent me this video clip. What a joke he is. I don't go to these forums. I haven't been on an internet forum almost 20 years. Okay. I don't deal with these people. So if you come to me for advice and training, you'll get the truth. You'll get my opinion and I'll prove it. I'll back it up. I won't just say it. But you know how it is. I try to explain everything in depth. Whereas others learn by osmosis, they learn by rote, they do because this is how it was shown to me. I try to break it down all the way. And that's how, that's how I learned. That's how I pretty much learned everything in my life. Like I had a really good scientific background. Okay. Well, science, no, I'm not a rocket scientist, but what I get at, what I'm meaning is I took electronics up, I was always into electronics as a kid. I took it up in school. That's science. You had to learn everything all the way down. And we were able to diagnose down to the board level back then. Forgot all that shit, but I was taught this is the reason why, when we put together a television set, we knew why the anode cathode gate in those tubes. We understood why all this was happening. Ohm's law, Thevenin's theorem. Same with music. It was all mathematical based. And even when I learned how to fight, Rod Von would tell me, okay, this is going to break this. Sometimes he messed up with the English, he got the wrong anatomical deal, but it's like, you got to learn all this. You got to learn the anatomy. And I took it upon myself to study on my own, and learn. I got a copy of Gray's Anatomy from the library and I used to read and study and, all of that shit. So it wasn't just a question of, I'm doing it because this is the way it was shown to me. No.
It's approaching it like an engineer,
Well, you have to be, because every building is going to be different, right? Every car manufactured is slightly different makes and models. They're not all Model T Fords anymore. So you have to understand how to adjust these techniques and how to apply them differently or how to augment them and make them even better. I would hope that I was a better submission guy than Rod Von because I took his shit and then tweaked it my own way, or in a way that, through trial and error you discover, or maybe somebody else may have shown me their approach. Like when I used to talk to Lou Thez about Lou never showed me submissions. I knew them all, but we would talk about setups and approaches and strategies and techniques and things along those lines, right? That's an important factor in learning how to fight, just like music. It's an important factor. Like you can take a song like Happy Birthday and, play it straight or put your own twist to it. You can play it in many different ways. You can play it like a classical musician would, and there's many different types of classical musicians. You can play it like Brahms would, like Chopin would, like Tchaikovsky would, like Beethoven would, or then you can play it like a jazz guy would, a ragtime pianist, a stride pianist, a bebop pianist, or a modern jazz player. So this is all, putting different twists and different takes to it. But all those musicians are playing the right notes. They're playing the correct progressions and so on. They're not junking it up. So you have to have that when you fight. You have to have the proper technique. It's got to be foolproof. It's got to be the highest, flawless. And then you have to start learning about ideas, strategies, and fighting outside of the box. And not everybody does that. You're not going to do it by mimicking maybe somebody else. You take their ideas and build upon it for yourself. That's how I've always approached things. I can watch you, if you were at my house now sparring with somebody, I could watch you do it and I could tell you this is how I would have approached it, my way. Now, take the way I just said to approach it and figure out your way. Figure out a different way than you just did. Don't use mine. Don't use what you just did. Use another one based on these principles that I just showed you. That's the key to getting good.
Well, that's the next level. And that's as people progress in whatever you're doing, I think the analogy you use all the time too, or I've heard, you learn the holds in isolation. It's like learning your alphabet or learning your individual words. That's fine. Once you've memorized these words and you know how to spell words properly. But okay, now you got to make a sentence. Or now, like you said, you're going to have a conversation. Now you got to think bigger, not just like what are the proper words, but what is the strategy of this conversation? What am I trying to do with this conversation? How do I persuade this person? It's this upper level. So things progress as you learn language, whatever it is. So at first you're just learning the building blocks.
Yeah.
Then you have to learn how to put those blocks together in different ways, depending what your goal is. So yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and it's stuff to think about. I think probably when people are new to any like fight system or whatever, yeah, you're going to spend a lot of time just learning the moves in isolation, and then you're going to start to think, okay, well, how can I, if the other person knows that exact same move, how do I spring it on him where he's not expecting it? How do I set that up? Or if he's rolled with me before, how do I mix it up? I think about that all the time where you talk about, being unpredictable and approaching the same thing differently every time. So,
well, that's just it. A lot of people are demonstrators, okay? But come and get them. Put that move on me, or not just me, but put the move on. You can't, they can't do it. And that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother element. And yeah, you do have to learn it in isolation. Like when I train so many guys, like the Canadians, okay, we're working on the punches. Okay, they're getting the punches down. Now work on it with that head movement and those angles. Okay, that shit is so lacking. Outside of boxing, it's frustrating to me because just a little motion makes such a difference. Okay, now for those of you who are watching me on YouTube, okay, you have a video here. Look at my head. Okay, look where it's at. It's pretty much looks to me like it's squared in the thing. But then just this little much, changes it. Now you don't have as big of a, the target's not there. Now if I come in, look at that. I mean, all of this stuff. Now I'm hard to hit. But if I keep going like this back and forth, I mean, no. So you got to go left, right, up, down, all these things. You got to learn how to punch off of that and, start to make your own rhythm, make your own patterns. You don't want to have a pattern that's repeatable because then your shrewd opponent's going to catch up on you and he's going to figure it out. So I just give him the idea here. This is how you move. This is all you need to do, just a little bit, let's say, and then start incorporating that. Like when I train Martin Wachowski, he's constantly head movement. Sometimes he'll get, he'll be punching so much and he won't be moving. I'll yell at him over the computer. Move that head. Move your head. Move it around. You got to keep going. And it's the same with the wrestling on the ground, the grappling, or even on the feet. But movement, angles, all of that science of balance and power and pressure and shit. There's a lot more to it than that's ever been revealed. And that's a shame. If you watch really, like, let's say you're into grappling. If you watch amateur wrestling, you'll see some explosiveness. You'll see some great movement. And it's different than any jacketed wrestling like judo or jiu-jitsu or sambo or something where you got jacket, because now you're holding at a distance. Whereas in wrestling you have your own handles. You make your own handles. Boxing, you don't really have handles unless you're tying up. So you got to use other things. You got to use more of your body, I guess, as opposed to worrying about grabbing material, it's different. It's a different approach. So, but yeah, I don't know how we got off on that subject, but we did once again.
Well, it's been a good conversation. Getting close to the lunch hour, so probably.
All right, kiddo. Well, then I thank everybody for listening, and hopefully my computer died yesterday, so I had to redo everything, my laptop. So hopefully it's all back in order. Won't know yet. But yeah, I want to thank everybody again for always watching and listening. And but yeah, it's all good. Thanks everybody for being here. And Joe, I appreciate you being here. And we're going to have a special guest next week.
Yeah, we'll have another guest, a longtime friend of mine. I'm very much looking forward to having a conversation with him and the guys. So I think that'll be a fun episode for everybody to tune into.
All right. Well, I don't even want to know who he is. Spring it on me.
All right, I will.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
All right, bye.
Thank you.